There is a very famous story about a squad of soldiers who were sent out into the Alps on a mission. And while they were on this mission, a great snowstorm came up, and it lasted for 2 days. At the end of those 2 days, this poor squad of soldiers were completely lost. They had no idea how to get out. They had very few things that they would need to get out, very few resources, and they were hungry, and they were freezing to death, and they were scared to death. But they had one thing going for them. There happened to be a map there. And so what that did is they managed to look at the map. They knew they were on the top of a mountain, but they didn't know which mountain, and they're surrounded by mountains, of course. But they managed to come up with what they thought would be a good triangulation, and they began to journey through the snow. And they met all kinds of difficulties, but they were always able to make a course correction, and eventually they reached safety. Now, the reason this is a famous story is not because of all of that. The reason this is a famous story is that what they realized once they got to safety is they didn't have a map of the Alps. They had a map of the Pyrenees. They had a map of the wrong mountains. But it was the map that saved them, even though it wasn't the map of the right mountains. Because what the map did, when they saw they had a map, what that did is that allowed them to get their feet going in a direction. It allowed everybody to say, okay, we've got a strategy. It's not hopeless. We have a strategy. It gave them a way to work together and to get their feet moving so they could find the right direction finally. In our gospel, the wise versions, we have the wise virgin, the wise young women, and the foolish young women. And the wise ones, well, they're telling us we need to get a strategy, because they had a strategy. They had a strategy not for just right now, this second, what to do right now. They had a strategy for the long run. They had not only what they needed for right now, but they looked ahead at the whole picture, and they said, what if he's late? We will need some. They had a strategy for the long run. And this is an odd reason. This reading perhaps sounds odd to our modern ears, because I think we tend to listen to this reading and go, well, man, those guys are really selfish. Why were those wise? Why didn't they just share something with the foolish young women? But that's not how our Christian ancestors heard this story. What they tended to hear when they heard this story was, who are we anyway? We are the people who are witnesses to the fact that Jesus Christ has come into the world and brought the dream of God and the rule of God and the kingdom of God into the world. And so it may look like everything's the same, but this world is burning down. And with the coming of Jesus, everything is burning down, everything has changed, and there is a coming when there will be a fulfillment of it all. And we're the people of that message. And so what they believed, how our Christian ancestors heard this story was, there may come a time when we cannot give up our responsibility to light up the dream of God coming upon the earth because of the laziness and the foolishness of some of our brothers and sisters. They saw this parable as saying, there may come a time, if we are going to be faithful to the mission of lighting up the glory of the kingdom of God, there may come a time when there is a separation in our lives, when there is a division in our lives. Because when there may come a time when we realize, I cannot give up on the responsibility to light up the glory of God because of another person's selfishness. I may have helped them as much as I could, but there may come a time when there is a division. And so these readings say, I think, to us very clearly, we need a strategy. We need something that gets our feet going in the right direction so that we can all work together and head in that direction. And even if we have to make some course corrections along the way, that's the way we will be ready when Christ comes back and not find a locked door there because of our foolishness, because of our laziness, our silliness, our refusal to take the world seriously and life seriously. And so the Pope has a strategy that he's recently invited us all to be part of. And the Archbishop, if you read the Northwest Magazine, you'll see that the Archbishop invites us into that as well. The Pope has invited all Catholics throughout the world to join in what he calls sharing the journey. And sharing the journey is a 2-year journey that the Pope invites us to do, and it's to share the journey of immigrants and exiles and people who are in danger and must leave their countries. It's a strategy that has 3 parts, and we're all invited to be part of it. First of all, to learn about exiles and immigrants, and to really learn, to deepen our understanding, to educate ourselves and understand more deeply the whole situation, the big picture of the situation, which is what wisdom is all about. But it also has a second part, which is that we correct our misunderstandings. We find what we misunderstand and we correct it so that we can have fuller wisdom about that situation. Because it's a drastic situation. There are more displaced people in the world right now than any other time since World War II. Over 50 million people in the world. And so the Pope is saying we must have a strategy for how we are going to let the light of God's kingdom and dream shine into this darkness. And so he has called us to 3 things: to greater understanding and education, to correct our misunderstandings, and then through that, be able then to do greater good and discover ways that we can more make things better in this awful situation. We are called, in our parish, we have a strategy. We have adapted 3 priorities that are a strategy. They send us our feet moving in the right direction and all working together. They are, of course, radical welcoming and deeper and deeper formation. So the deeper understanding and formation of our deeper growth in holiness of our Christian calling, and more the ability to take in evangelization the good news of Jesus Christ outside the borders of the church. There's an great Italian theologian who asks a remarkable question of the church. He says, who's going to protect Jesus from us? Well, that sounds like a pretty odd thing to say at first, but what he means is, who will protect Jesus from us, Christians, when we get lazy and foolish and so egocentric that all we're concerned about is our comfort rather than living by the values that we profess? Who's going to protect Jesus from us Christians when we're the foolish young women? When we're the ones who we can't get our feet going in the right direction. We don't have any kind of a strategy, and we're lazy, and who's going to protect Jesus from us? It's a profound question. And I like his answer. His answer is the church. That's what the church is for. That's what this Mass is for. That's why we keep coming back here. That's what the Church of Jesus Christ is for. It is to continually, as Jesus calls us in the Gospels, to get that strategy, to get back to that strategy and working together. It is to continually do what Jesus calls us to wake up, get our feet moving in the right direction. It is the call to discover wisdom all of both of those reading. That first reading is one of the most beautiful readings about wisdom, how we are to seek wisdom. And wisdom is not just the awareness of what to do now, it is an awareness of the whole picture, the big picture over the long haul. It's a strategy for the big picture plus right now, and something even deeper than that. It's a call for us to find the foundations of wisdom in our own self. It's a call for us to learn how to read the book of ourselves and to find that we have the foundations of wisdom because we have the Spirit of God within us. And so we come to church and we come to Mass to have that awakened, to have the desire for wisdom, to go deeper and deeper into this life of God. We come here to have that awakened and so we can wake up to it again and to have it energized so that we can institute that strategy where we get our feet on the ground together and we get going in a direction. And so let us come to this altar, this sacred table today, receive the food that we need for the journey. The journey that calls us to follow the strategy of the church and of the Spirit of God within our hearts so that we can stay awake